everybody. I am obviously not Michael Cameron. I'm Marcia Detail, chairing today's meeting, and I call this meeting to order at 4:09 p.m. So welcome all of us, all of you board members. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to continue to serve the Cincinnati Preschool Promise. So I have roll call too. We were double duty here. So here it goes. Christopher Bennett.
Present.
Lynn Calhoun.
Present.
Irvin Dotson. Terry England.
Present.
I am here. Michelle Hopkins. Carolyn Jones.
Present.
Raven McKinney. Christy Phillips.
Here.
And Sally Westheimer.
Here too.
All right, we have four. So next order of business is to review and approve our minutes from the September 24th, 2024 meeting, which was our annual meeting. We'll take a second to re-review, and then I'll entertain a motion.
I motion we approve last month's minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Chris. You go by Chris.
Whatever you want to call me there.
Depends on how you back check, right? Okay. The motion was made by Chris and seconded by Sally. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried, and we will file our minutes.
I'll take it.
So I'm excited. I'm sorry that Keisha has not arrived yet to do this. She was doing some United Way activities this morning. To share with you that our mission moment is our preschool site of the month. That is Ms. Penny Glasper, who is a Type B family and child care program who converted from our QI program in March of 2020. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. And located in East Price Hill, which you know is one of our Quality Gap neighborhoods. She is also a recipient of our Teacher Promise Grant, which means she's in it to win it, because you get Teacher Promise Grant when the majority of your students are preschool promise preschoolers, and it is a retention incentive so that she continues to thrive, keep her site open. She is a star provider, a wonderful educator, and we are pleased to recognize Ms. Peggy Glasper as our preschool of the month. Ms. Glasper, can you join us? Take your time, because it's your show, man. It's you. Up here. And this is a warm, friendly room. This is our board of managers who meet and make decisions every day to support you in the work you do, and it's a chance for them to show their appreciation in person.
Yes, ma'am. I'm making
Hey, you want to sit or stand? How are you more comfortable?
Don't matter.
Okay, that's up
Probably
to you.
stand. I'm already a nervous wreck.
Don't be nervous. Here's what I'll say. This is a warm, friendly work. We appreciate following you.
Yes,
Right?
ma'am.
Don't be nervous. I'll be right there with you.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I am so thrilled and honored to be provider of mine. I wrote a little speech. Not long. Oh, God.
You got it. You got it.
I am so very honored and humbled to be chosen as preschool provider for the month of October. Preschool Promise has done so many great things to keep me advanced and become a greater teacher for children. First and foremost, I want to thank the staff. Everyone at Preschool Promise plays a great impact to providers, especially me. Helping out with a coach helps us learn, advance, and definitely strive to be a greater preschool teacher. Second, the training classes, it teaches you so many unique things to incorporate with the learning you teach already every day with preschoolers that can advance and take with them when they enter K through 12. As a preschool provider overall, it has taught me to to not only push myself as a person, but also as a provider. Offering tuition assistance and quality improvement is a stepping stone that teaches me and acknowledges and educates me overall. Preschool Promise has truly helped me to advance to become a Gold Star provider. Overall, I am once again, thankful, grateful, and blessed by God, family, friends, and the amazing staff at Preschool Promise for always being a great supporter and leader in the field that I chose to be in. I feel so blessed. Thank you.
You got your mother.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again, everybody.
All right, that's always an exciting part of the agenda, to see, work in progress, to see the impact. That was just amazing. So congratulations again, young lady.
Thank you.
All right, committee reports. And that's me again. So in your packet, you should have a couple of governance things here. We have 2 additional nominees for the class of 2027. And that's on page 7 in your packet. The governance committee presents these nominees from the committee for the class of 2027 Cincinnati Preschool Promise Board of Managers. So these are recommendations coming from the governance committee. We have Pamela Bowers, who is here, and we have Valencia Johnson. Okay. All right. So I'll entertain a motion to accept these nominees.
I move to accept the nominees.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Carolyn, seconded by Terry to receive Ms. Bowers and Ms. Johnson to the class of 2027 for our Board of Managers. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. So welcome back, Dan. Come on down. All right.
As we continue to update our board matrix, you all will receive a Google form link that asks you to populate demographics and what your interests are so that we can complete our annual board matrix early, because we still have 3 open board positions for the class of 2027. You will also see in that a request that if you know good candidates and nominees, to send those to Marcia and the governance committee so that they may consider that. It will take you 8 minutes to complete. Just click the buttons on who you are and what you'd like to share, and it is the similar skills matrix that we do every year. So I'll ask you age range, again, demographic information, 4 interest areas, so that we can compile that information. The aggregate information, so that your name will not be identified with the information that you submit, is what will be part of the public record and distributed to the board. The only people that will see the name matched with your form are taken in.
Question. Did we do this, was this something that was put out a while ago? I'm trying to remember. Okay, so if I've already done it, I don't need to go back.
You do. Everyone
Oh,
needs
I
to
do.
do it to update, because every year when we identify new categories where we have a need, we change the interest area.
Gotcha.
So last year, you wouldn't have seen an interest in philanthropy outside of the regional area that you'll see on this year's matrix, because as we look at our strategic plan and what we need from board members, the demographics and age will look the same, but the interest areas and expertise will change each year based on what we need for each class.
Thank you.
So, and normally we wouldn't do it until the next annual meeting time, but because we have 3 open positions, we're gonna go ahead and ask everybody to update it as we try to identify candidates for those new positions. It was my intention to have it today, but I could make it happen, but you all will get it before the end of the week.
Okay, so next order of business, I think everybody got this blue piece of paper here. Our board chair, Mr. Cameron, has put together the committee appointments, and you should find your name on at least one of those. Okay, and they do need to be approved by this board, so I'll entertain a motion for that.
I move.
Okay, and second? Okay. It's been moved by Glenn, properly seconded by Pam to approve these 2024-2025 committees. Y'all found your names? All minds clear, all spirits free? Okay, we'll take a vote.
Discussion.
Yes, we can have discussion.
What was I gonna say? I was just gonna say, I am honoring our wonderful CEO's request to serve on finance, although I don't feel like that's my skill set, but I'll do the best that I can for you, okay, in the program.
I appreciate that. Favors are always welcome. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, thank you.
You weren't voluntold, were you?
It was begging.
Begging, it was begging, okay. Any other questions about the committee before we take our vote? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried. All righty, so our next agenda item, is Hector presenting?
Hector is presenting. Hector knows the
Hector knows all the details. Okay, so, come on down, Hector. You're next on the agenda.
Because I do lawyer math and financing.
So we'll be discussing the resolution for moving the civil IRA accounts from the current provider to Fidelity. So just go ahead and share that with us, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First of all, I want to apologize to those impacted by the fact that there's a lot of personal information here that was supposed to be redacted. I have two versions, and I don't know how that version got here, so when you leave this room, if you don't need these papers, please throw them out, shred them in a way that would be commensurate with the fact that they're Social Security numbers. So there were two versions. The one that will be posted will be the one without that information on it. First,
Okay,
second.
so to be clear, so that would be pages
11.
11, well,
12.
actually,
Pages
10. 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll just give it back.
Pages
Oh,
10
that's
through
great.
16.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
pages
thank
10
you.
through 16.
Yeah.
Because everything else we can just snatch out of it if you need.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then to explain what this is doing is we have a simple IRA for our employees for their retirement, which is the simplest of all retirement plans. It created we've given the small size of our company, or our entity, it's really what makes sense. We had it with Vanguard Investments, who took those small IRAs and pushed them off to a third party. That third party is known as a census. The service, the options, and the cost of being with a census is higher than it was with Vanguard or it would be with Fidelity. In addition, the options available with a census for investments of our employees are fewer as well. So we had no option this year because the change was done mid-year. But with 2025, we're able to move to another provider. That provider would be Fidelity. Fidelity requires that the board approve 6 set of resolutions, which are in page 4, page 16.
Give it back. 17.
We snatched it
We
out.
snatched it out and back.
16, the red 16.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
just give us the highlight.
Yeah, but the highlight basically is you agree that the persons listed in the documents, which would be myself and Shara, can act on behalf of the entity in order to open the accounts in order to transact with the accounts. And in order to, should we close the accounts, but that we can represent the entity. So that's one. Although there's 6, basically they say all the same thing in different variations. The second portion that they say is that by you approving these resolutions, you're not going against any corporate structure or resolutions that already exist within CPP. So for example, you couldn't approve a resolution that went against the operating agreement. That type of thing. So they ask you to certify both, that the HR are allowed to behave, to act on behalf of the entity, and that by approving these, you're not violating some of the other structural documents that make up the entity. Is that such a?
And actually, on behalf of the entity, do you all bring information back prior to decision making? Not necessarily.
No, now we start the process and we start to behave like we have all along, which is, it's a staff matter.
Okay.
And the employee, once it gets created, then it just becomes a staff
Like
matter.
you do what you can always. Okay.
This company just requires a different level of,
Okay.
So if I can ask you, well,
I would just say that when I came to the organization, figuring out this retirement structure was kind of a mandate that came from the board. And it took us a couple of years to try to figure out what we would do, because being a small organization, we want to do the simplest thing, the easiest way. And we did that through several iterations and talks with legal counsel, and really have to do an amazing amount of due diligence to find what would be satisfactory to the employees, but ease of use as well, which is why we landed on the simple IRA. And I can't reiterate enough that Vanguard was an optimal solution for us at the time to get it done, but they are incredibly horrible to work with. And so in some ways, this is a gift in disguise for us.
so,
Just
go ahead.
clarification, so you'd be moving, you wouldn't have both, is what you're saying, you'd be moving. So
Correct. The entity will only have one plan with one provider.
Okay.
Employees can leave their money where they wish,
Sure.
but the entity will only have a plan with Fidelity going forward.
So,
And the other one will be truncated, it will be closed from the entity's perspective.
Okay.
just real quick, so do they provide, for the employee, first of all, are there other employees besides who you on the plan right now?
Oh, yeah,
Everybody's on the plan right now?
everybody,
And who wants to be on the plan is on the plan?
correct,
Okay.
correct.
Will Fidelity provide any kind of services for the people on the plan, like financial stuff or?
They do not. It is one of the things that comes with having the simplest of plans. What they do provide is online, and you have access if you wish to pay additionally to advisors. But normally, that would not be part of it, simply because of the liability reasons, both for them and for the entity. For us, if we say you must use Fidelity, or here have to use this in order to invest, then we would be exposed, which is, for example, what you sometimes see in 401ks, where there's a higher duty by the board and by members about what's the plan composition or the different providers inside the 401k. We avoid all those liability issues by taking a simple IRA.
Another question, so will the staff be given any sort of guidance on how to, if they want to keep their money in the first one or move it, will they be given kind of guidance on the process, or are they just kind of on their own to figure that out?
That email has already been written, and it's waiting for this approval, helping those who wish to remain with the census. There's a certain number of steps they need to take, which are very minimal. Those who wish to move to Fidelity, there's another series of steps that I've already walked through all of them. They're in the email, they're ready to hit go. So they will get assistance, yes.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I
A motion, we approve the resolutions for power and creation of the Fidelity Simple IRA accounts.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Chris and seconded by Sally to approve the resolutions for the creation of these accounts under Fidelity. All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain. I might do that, right? All right, but please report that. Okay, next on the agenda, the executive director report, take a break, shower.
Always my happy time, hello. So I sent you all a written narrative report and just wanted to get some highlights. You will see outside the most recent drop-off from Queen City Book Bank that has been so generous in donating books to us and our providers and our families. What I've also asked them to do is they have a day where we can come and volunteer. And so I will send out a doodle poll to ask when we may be able to do that. They have probably 10 to 12 pallets of books that were donated by the Romita Foundation. The only delay in distributing those books is someone to sort them. So they will create an opportunity for us to gather our volunteers, whether board members, whether parents, whether providers, to go down and select and curate books that we think would be particularly of interest to our early learners and preschoolers, pull those out and share those with us. So it is a great partnership. It is focused on family literacy. As you know, they have a big new warehouse, and we expect this partnership to be bigger and better for all of us. And in January, it will help restart our Promise Reader series with the books that they give to us as well. So, Groundwork Ohio, you have their legislative agenda, public policy agenda that you received as well. Tomorrow will be the anniversary celebration for Groundwork Ohio at the State House. And of course, honoring one of our local champions, Margaret Holbrook, will be there as well. Groundwork Ohio is also partnered with Ohio Policy Matters to initiate a new cost modeling project. And if you all, I don't know how many of you are familiar with cost modeling, but it is a mechanism by where they determine how much it actually costs to provide a child care seat in the community. What is the gap between the supply and the demand, and what we think the estimated cost is to actually provide the access that we're talking about. So a huge undertaking that the Children's Funding Project is working on, that we're excited to get started and appreciative of Groundwork Ohio to do that as well. You'll also see that the Momentum Institute that we went to, we had a large contingent of Ohio representatives there. The key takeaways from that were really focused on how we message early learning and how we get ready to do public policy and information around early learning in our community. Child Care Aware of America conference was last week in Salt Lake City. A big thank you to our partners at 4C for Children as the Child Care Referral and Reference Association for Ohio, CCR&R. I don't think that we realize how lucky we are in Ohio to have 4C and to have the Ohio CCR&RA, Child Care Reference and Referral Association. There are so many states that don't have that and don't have support for providers and parents to really navigate what is our child care and early learning system. It was great to see their policy agenda really focused on some ideas on how we start to talk about the economic development imperative of early learning and child care in the community. And so that kind of dovetails on what happened this morning with United Way and talking about their new frameworks project and the messaging and the toolkit we use around early learning. And while I know all of our board members in our mission is very committed to being child-centered and putting children at the forefront, the reality is for us to start to get, how should I say, market share in the will of the public, we have to talk about this in a way that all of our stakeholders can hear it. And that is not just the benefit and outcomes for children, but the benefits and outcomes for small business owners who are providers, benefits and outcomes for the business community, and for our communities overall, not just this year, not just next year with KRA scores, but long term. How does early learning and child care impact our community? Child Care Aware of America does that very well, and so we were pleased to partner with them. I will be pushing out summaries and slide decks as soon as those are available. You will also see your dashboard This should be no great surprise to you all. These are the same numbers for the strategic plan. We updated them for this year based on our budget and realistically what we thought we could accomplish. So you will see that our enrollment numbers are a little bit lower than last year, as I told you. We're not going to continue to do this peak, right? We would rather overperform. We've also pulled down some of the numbers for teaching progress grants and QI conversions, simply because we knew our QI cohort this year was only going to have 20 new interns, right? Remember, as our enrollment and TA numbers are supposed to go up, our QI numbers are supposed to go down, because the more providers that reach high quality, the less those conversion numbers mean. And that does not mean less coaching, less provider supports, and other things. It actually means just a fewer number that you can actually see in conversions. So, also to highlight for you all some of the key initiatives that we'll continue to work on. Our social media platforms are exploding. We're officially in our popularity contest from now until November of 2025. So we'll be tagging you and asking you all to do that. We have revised our grant funding from the Greater Cincinnati Foundation to be really focused on network building, support systems, promotional activities for our family child care providers. And they were gracious enough to allow us to retool that. So for the first time ever, we will have a provider giving, which is code for Thanksgiving for providers, on November 15th. And it is really a session for our providers to relax, to enjoy each other, to network. I will, of course, be putting up a gallery walk to get some input, because we will be doing a little bit of work. But it is really focused on us showing our appreciation for them and taking a break. If you all are not aware, the other thing that's happening with our Department of Children and Youth as well is that they have announced some pretty ambitious goals for the next few years. The one that concerns me most, as I talked to many of you about, is setting our kindergarten KRAR goal scores to go from a 31% to a 60%. So I'm not sure how that happens and what the strategy is behind that. So it makes me a little nervous because I don't like setting goals you can't meet. The other thing is, as the departments merge, where JFS and Job and Family Services and the Department of Education have merged so that all early learning now sits in the Department of Children and Youth. They have launched a process to, what's the best way to say it, compile and simplify licensing, and have set out a trajectory of where they're going to start to do that in January. So they're trying to get rid of duplicate rules, they're trying to minimize the rules that are there, they're trying to change things, get provider input from that. What that means ultimately is looks like a little bit more chaos and change in the system. So we have a lot of step up to quality changes, we have the end of ARPA dollar funding, and now we also have changes in the licensing system, right? So all of this is swirling around, which means that preschool promise is an obligation, intention, and strategy to make sure that we are at least the voice of stability. We're there to support you and enroll in whatever comes, as long as we keep our North Star, which is maximizing enrollment and making sure it's a high-quality preschool environment. Other stuff, we can bid, right? We can bid and try to make that happen. But that is, we're seeing increased provider fatigue when we say risk to program delivery and mission. We're seeing a lot of frustration, and for the first time ever, I've seen providers who have been with us since before I was here kind of throw up their hands and say, we just don't want to do this anymore. And I don't blame them. And it's not that they don't want to educate children. It is that they don't want to be confronted every day with the bureaucracy of having to push through that, right? And there is very little we can do to change that. We can slim down the bureaucracy on our side, but it is a challenge in the system, right? So I'll take a deep breath and I'll kind of digest that.
So, well, the thing about going from 31% prepared or
There's just demonstrating, I think, demonstrating, yeah.
meaning the top level, to 61, have you heard any discussion about
Yes.
strategies?
One of the strategies is the mandatory curriculum that they're going to offer for 0, 1, and 2-star providers, right?
Wait. Mandatory offer?
So the offerings are the training that people don't have to purchase it, you don't have to pay for it.
Okay.
But there has been a requirement, and Vera, jump in if I'm wrong, But we all have to, everyone has to implement a curriculum that is aligned with the science of reading. So that is a mandatory requirement.
And on their list, it has to be on the.
And on their list, right?
Okay, not a single one, but a choice of some small number.
A choice of a small number. And in most cases, most of our providers who are high quality are already aligned with that and using a approved curriculum, right? That would be great if you didn't have a brand new teacher. And that would be great if you didn't have a teacher who was 18 and just got out of the classroom and go into your classroom, right? So it was basically started from scratch in a culture, a new group of people to this training at the same time. And not finding fault or blame, but sometimes the state system is not quite sure where it's going when making decisions. And so they roll out rules to providers. And what I have observed of our provider network is that rapid change is very challenging. Rapid rule compliance is very challenging. So they have put in place that they're putting an RFP out for people to train and offer professional development on that curricula, who can source it at the best price. All of that is happening strategically. But for us, my concern is that we may be pushed for the first time to set a KRA guard goal, and I am perplexed on how to set a goal, but we don't have the leverage to control and push and drive that goal.
And why would Cincy Preschool Promise be required to have a goal by whom?
Not required, but requested of funders and supporters. So in rooms that I go in, the question is, what is evaluating the KRAs or scores for your students? Is this worth the investment? Is this the ROI? How did you set the goal? So you gotta remember, this room, I'm talking to the choir. Out there, we have, while most of us have moved to the question of how we do early education, there's still a large group of people that say if we should do early education and are looking at those linear results, right? And so if the notion is that you're going to invest in 0, 1, and 2 part providers by providing this miraculous curriculum, right? Which theoretically could work, that would never show an impact on Cincinnati Preschool Promise scores because we're never measuring KRA scores of 0, 1, and 2 star providers because they don't receive tuition assistance. So that number or that theory of change that's going to work wouldn't have any impact on the scores that we're measuring, right? So that is just to say, we'll be leaning into the United Way frameworks. We'll be working with our collaborative partners to say, and I'm sorry that Tony is not here because he always says, don't follow someone else's story. You tell the story that you want to tell, right? So how do we lead with the impact that we know our investments have, right? Who benefits the most from that investment? And that's not only KRA scores, but that's one measure. How do we socialize and make sure that people understand the others? So you all received a link, and Lena is doing a conference tomorrow of nationwide data that they started to collect to say how do we determine whether or not a child shows up prepared to learn in kindergarten ready, other than just that test, right? And realistically, some of it is the differences in the system. Because if you are in a public school system, of course a standardized test is the way to go. Everything is measured that way, right? In the K-12 system. That's not unreasonable. It's just not the way that it always works in the community provider setting. So we have to acknowledge, how are we measuring implementation of developmentally appropriate practice? How do we measure other ways? Both can be true and valid measures, not one to the exclusion of the other. And how do we do that?
So it occurs to me that we have said if you're star rated at a certain level, that's our criteria. We have not added additional expectations about what constitutes quality or what people are supposed to do. Should we be setting goals for our tuition assistance providers? We may come to a point where we add requirements that are beyond the quality rating system.
I think that is a fantastic idea. We have talked about that for years because really, step up to quality in those systems should be the floor, not the ceiling. But I want to be cautious, and if we choose to do that, that we can appropriately resource someone's ability to meet those requirements.
So it's do we set goals? If we set goals, let me put it that way, if we set a numerical goal, we may have to use our resources differently to meet that goal.
Absolutely, and Cleveland is the best example of how to do that when they pull the levers on the things that matter, which are child ratios, right, attendance, and qualifications and credentials of teachers. And you saw a set aside for 3 years overlay measure of increased care scores and overall performance and longevity of students. The cost for that may be prohibitive for us, right? Because you have to think the messaging that still happens in this community, and I saw it this morning, where people still talk about universal preschool. That is not what we have, people. That is not what this is. You cannot get universal preschool for $2 million at all. So I just want to be cautious. If that is absolutely something we can do, but then we also start to run into compliance, right? Who is going to monitor the compliance for that? Are we going to align with saying, maybe if you have basic accreditation, right? Maybe if you have near standards that you're implementing. And then is there an equitable lens on that, on how our FCC can also get that accreditation as easily as our centers that are in other classrooms? So it is a lot for us to think about, but I also think the lessons learned from what happened in New York, with all transparency, I don't think about any of that until after that. Right? Because wide-scale changes have more people disgruntled and uncertain about the moves. While we think there are positive changes and that can happen, I think that's the lesson that they shared with us. When they did wide-scale contract changes and shifts and improvements that were evidence-based, that they all talked about, that they socialized, it crashes the system in a way. So I think we can start to think about that. I think we have the expertise to do that. I think we have the community will to do it. The question is, can we afford it?
Any other questions? I just wanted to know the timeline from the 31% to 60%.
I'm not quite certain. They got pushed out. You'll see in your narrative report on bold goals. I don't know if that's anticipated with the 26-27 budget cycle.
Okay.
Because the other thing that you'll realize in a biennial budget year, you can set a goal based on our money. You had the same amount of money before you set the goal.
Right.
Okay, I don't understand how that works exactly. But we are following and tracking, and I believe that you have to set ambitious goals to get it, and that it will all unfold to be a good strategy. But what I don't want to happen is another aha moment, right? And our last aha moment was when providers were notified that they could use ECE grants and publicly funded childcare, which sounds like a simple thing and a moderate change that happened in July. But for providers, that's a $4,000 grant for a child that you had counted on, that someone told you stops today, figure it out. I don't know how people figure that out, right? And so that's why I say our system is very sensitive to those changes. So before we did that, I really want to think about how we can implement that in a way that isn't punitive-based excellence, right? That's what we call it. We want to drive quality, but not in a way that's punitive. I think we have questions.
One question I do have, and this may be broader education from you later, is I'm trying from a messaging perspective balance. We have to be very conscious and cautious of what we invest in for purposes of making sure that if we go a particular direction, that we can afford it, while also having $800,000 of underspending. So how do we think about kind of the narrative that really makes sense for that conversation?
Yeah, so we will go a little bit deeper on that, but the $800,000 in underspend was planned, right? But that wasn't unexpected. We used to have $2 billion in underspend that we didn't know how we got here, right? This was intentional, a strategy knowing that we had to do it, and it's underspend to be conservative and bank it for future years, right? So that's what this underspend is about. I would be happy to spend out to the last dollar that we have. Makes me nervous when we have these fluctuations that I don't know. There are some contingencies, and we had long debates on what our contingency fund will be. There is no contingency fund that will help me address with pulling all of our dollars, which as it should, is tuition assistance. When I have, what were we this year, after 1.4 million variance? of what we thought, that's not a contingency amount, right? That's not a, so we always have to be conservative because there's volatility in the other places that we can't control, right? So we can control, because we know once a year FPL changes, right? We can control for that. We can't control for the large number of parents that we know because of other changes are now no longer eligible for PFCC. We can't control for what we know is expanded eligibility for families through child care choice vouchers that everybody's gonna get real comfortable with. But if you're a 3-year-old that got it this year, it's not gonna be available for you when you're 4, right? So if you keep your child in the same school, we had a situation where you were getting something that looked just like PFCC, right? For thousands of dollars. You go back to enroll in that exact same preschool the next year, preschool promise has to pick up the full bill because you're not getting that PFCC dollar. And while I don't know how a parent or provider can plan for that, we have to plan for that because we know it's coming, right? So it is a balance where we talked about, you know, there was great concern in 2020 when we were going back to the ballot. But how do we explain we have $18 million in the bank? We're asking you for some more money. How does that look? And the reality is, you know, one of the talking points on framework is that we invest wisely. We're fiscally responsible. We prioritize what we know is going to have the best outcome for children, which is tuition assistance. We have good audits, right? We balance this carefully. And that's the talking point we're going to have to stick to. You know, I know that most of you saw that the city had a windfall in their budget, unspent funds, and that inquired article. I think they have places to spend it on, right? And it's contract delays and other things like that. So it's important that we always take a deeper dive below that talking point to say, is that money reserved for a strategic way for us to meet our commitments? And that's what I would say about the 800,000 underspent. It is money that was strategically planned to ensure that we can meet our commitments.
What is our, assuming new licensing rules are finalized January, or we're hoping maybe-ish?
Well, yeah, let's look at the chart. I don't know if it's, they have a timeline, a very aggressive timeline, right?
So what is our role then as the preschool promise to support providers once the new rules are released?
So we rely very heavily on 4C for Children for that, and the contracting agent of the state in Hamilton County to do that. Our role is to facilitate the flow of information. Sometimes it's to have small meetings like that in this room where people can do one-on-one conversations and ask questions. It's our responsibility to elevate the provider voice because we don't really get a licensing that much, right? We look at the chart and say, like, are you good or are you not, right? Is your license active or do you have things on there? So we do try to problem solve sometimes if there are licensing challenges, but that also exposes us to liability in a way that we try to limit. So for us, our role in licensing is really one of public information and public policy to make sure that there's a free flow of information. I think you all will be surprised the number of providers who are posting on Facebook that said things like, when did the step up to quality changes happening and what they are? And that is not casting blame, that is talking about a network of educators that are so overwhelmed. Their focus is making sure they're educating kids that are helping in a safe way and supporting parents and communities. When they get to those rules at 9:30 at night, when they finally get to it, right, that may not be at the top of the thing at their list. So our goal is to try to help elevate that and double up because every messenger may carry it in a different way. So we always ask for C when they send us their newsletter, and this is what the state put out, how do we amplify that message with our provider newsletter? How do we have individual conversations? So I know that you saw Amber and Sydney outside. Amber and Sydney are the people who will say, call me on the phone, let's talk about it. What do you think you're missing? We're not the licensing agent, but we'll connect you with the person that is. And initially, when we first saw the step up to quality changes that were coming, our team had monthly meetings with JFS and that team at the state level and say, this is what we're seeing, this is what the data is showing, this is what we think the challenges are, because this community made an investment that allows us to do that. Right. All right. Other questions? You know I love this. So The last thing that I'll say is I was very fortunate after an interview process to be selected.
One other question, and you probably pontificate on this one and wax poetic for some time. One of the things that I think I am thinking about very critically is as we look forward into the future, and I'm probably moving a little prematurely thinking about the levy, because I know you had a notation in the executive director's notes around watching around the country and here how levies perform. I think one of the things that I'm thinking about, assuming levy is renewed, we're talking about a levy that was established 10 years ago. So I am interested that even as we move forward with everything rising in cost, strategically, what are some of the choices that we may have to evaluate, even if we are approved for another levy? Because 2016, 2017 dollars are not going to be the same as 25 forward. So
$15 million is $19,700,000 now. I know.
Yep.
It's $19,700,000. Yeah, that's how much it is. I think those are ongoing policy conversations that we have to have with Cincinnati Public Schools, because ultimately it is a CPS levy, and the reality is preschool expansion is not the only matter of concern on that levy. It is my intention and my goal, and while you will see like me walking around the Northeast floor, is how we bring other resources to this community, because relying solely on a CPS levy cannot continue to be the only source of public funding for our community to do early learning. So whether that is going to Akron like we did and talking with the GAR Foundation, whether that is in Portland talking with the Kellogg Foundation, what does that investment look like? And for me, the prime spots are that I don't know what the city or the county investment is here. Those are the easiest spots, right? After Mayor Shannon stood up and said, I think the conference of mayors should get together and talk about how we do this. And I said, well, you do. You make a call?
You did this couple of
Right, but we also recognize that everybody has education priorities, right? And it is a balancing act about how we talk about that. And it is my greatest fear, because no matter how committed you are to early learning and how good the ROI is for this, we're in a season where property taxes in our county have gone up, and people are hurting because of that. We have seen our metrics are going to go down because you can't afford to pay for the same high number with an equal amount of money, right? Our reserves are gone that we used to be able to do pilot programs. It costs more if you can even find a teacher. It costs more. So sometimes if you're relying on a value proposition alone, it's kind of hard, right? So we have to rely and really do strategic messaging to say, is the will of the community continue to invest in this, and how do we get that messaging? And I am confident that our partners with CPS will again set us up to be prepared to do that, how we can work collaboratively to do that, but we should also recognize that there will be some tough conversations coming, right? Because nobody wants to say in the public, like, I'm going to do less than I do more. I mean, that's the story, right? So I do expect that those challenging conversations will come, but I am very mindful every day that we have to, right now my job is to make sure that everyone is clear about what they're supporting and what the benefit happens. Not the gloom and doom of what happens if you don't, right? We're not going to do that yet. But what the benefit of this is and what could we do, right? So that our supporters are not just those that, again, care about children, not just those that care about education, but those that are trying to attract parents to work here, those that are trying to get economic development dollars from the feds, that some communities have said, for every RFP and every contract that we give out for the city, we need a statement on there that will be rated and graded on the RFP scoring of how they're going to provide child care for your workers. For every economic development dollar that comes to the city, how is it going to benefit our youngest learners that we're responsible for, as well as the people that can take advantage of it? So it's shifting the framing. So how do we embed early education and that benefit into every part of our community so that it's an imperative? And I'm thankful for the state will have the expertise to do that. You all know something a little bit different and talk about it a little bit differently. It's just not how we've had to think about it before, and now we do. Every day, some of us think about it every day. So that goes me to, I'm honored and wanted to let you all know that I'm officially on the slate for the National Board of Governors for NACE, the National Association to Educate Young Children. We will be doing a Meet the Candidates Forum. It's all in Anaheim for the national conference. And voting actually doesn't open up until January. And I have very strict rules about campaigning that are going to be really hard for me because I run to win. But I will follow those rules. But I want you to be aware and that NACE is very much aligned with what our mission and our core values are, so you have that here. What I can do is encourage everyone who is a member to vote, to be engaged in the process. So I think the opportunity for this is to give us some visibility in what we're doing here. Again, to attract national funders and supporters of how do they do this differently and non-traditional funders. And it's time for us to start to talk about our healthcare agencies and how early education is a public health imperative, right? We're a hospital-rich community. I can't remember the last time I got a check from $22. So how do we do that? And I think NACE offers us a platform in addition to being associated with the Children's Funding Project to be able to do that. So I have packed my bags, bought some tickets, and we're ready to make it work. So upcoming events, you will flip to the next slide for me, Hector. Oh wait, I'm gonna go back one. You did ask me a question at the beginning about the primary causes of denial for enrollment. This is our enrollment snapshot. You can see our progress. You will see under deny, it lists for you the top reasons, and most of them are that the address is not in the district or they're too old. So by too old, we mean you are otherwise eligible for preschool or you were not 3 or 4 years old by September 30th, right? That would be too young. But if you are 5, right, and eligible for preschool because of your birthday, eligible for kindergarten, yes. Otherwise eligible for kindergarten, then you are deemed too old for preschool private tuition assistance funding.
And for just understanding where it says, no response, parent not interested, does it mean we had a child who was 3, who would likely be set up to, once again, be there 4 because it's their preschool before going to kindergarten, but for whatever reason, the parent either didn't approve, didn't provide information, didn't align to us funding again.
Yeah, so we, lots of things happen with that, and I can tell you stories, and that's why we have a whole team that is devoted to that. We don't disaggregate that anymore, like we used to have reports that would say, didn't answer the phone, or some of that you'll see they moved, or in some cases, they may have enrolled in a CPS preschool. But we don't have the ability to track the data in that way. Usually, what that means, no response, is that in our service level agreement with our partners at Metrics, they have a certain number of touch points. We have an internal policy that has a certain number of touch points, so they do 3, we do 3. And by touch points, I don't mean like we send the email, I mean, show up, go to the provider site, those are the touch points. So when we get that number, we're very sure about the no response, is that we've done all of those things over the course of 60 days, and that we are just, we don't think that that's good, that can move forward. About 3 or 4 years ago, we got the voice of your customer to do a deep dive study to really talk to the parents who, what we considered were not a filtered, right? That we couldn't get enrolled in a site, and there were really some challenging issues that we didn't have the capacity to address, right? So if a parent is not responding, again, when you saw our mobility analysis, if they had 4 different homes in the course of that 30 days, that's not a lot that we can do, right, to influence that. And that's what we found. Numbers are disconnected in many cases, or they made a different choice. And while we think we're working friendly, some parents don't tell you business. They're like, stop calling me, my child is in school, thank you, right? So it's some of that too, and we respect that, right? That's a choice the parent gets to make. But we did do a snapshot deep dive, and I would say the trends that we've had over the last 2 or 3 years are probably the same. We may do a deep dive again, but I would rather focus on how we push over and get those extra families that are interested instead of the ones that we can't respond to. Right? Other questions, Sally? You have
No,
any questions?
I just am looking at the percentage last year, because this year is too early to tell, I think, but the percentage of less than 10%, we kind of, with what we know about mobility in people's lives, so on the move, I think that's not bad, less than 10%. You know, hate to lose a single opportunity for a family or a child, but I think I don't feel bad about that number.
I'm excited about our 41%. We would love to get to overall 50% of the eligible population that we're touching, but 41% is pretty good, right? Which is better than what we hear, that's our high level number, right? Based on our population data. Okay, Hector, will you flip to the next slides for me? Just some, you'll see the enrollment trends, tuition assistance status, the orange is where we're peaking. Is that right, Hector?
Yeah.
The orange is where we're peaking, so we're doing a little bit better. And I think a lot of that is intentional, that we're really doing some work, really that our structure looks a little bit different this year, that the snapshot of the first issue and the funding comes at December 31st, right? So we have to be intentional, and that we won't have the boost that we've had in previous years, where we see that spike in March and April of people trying to enroll for the extended learning session. So that's my long way of saying everybody that we've gotten by December 31st is probably all we're hearing today. So we've been very intentional about doing outreach, making sure that people understand the imperative, asking people not to wait, to send us forms in, make sure they're certified for PFCC and vouchers, just be really diligent about how they do that. And then I can't say enough good things about our community engagement, outreach, enrollment team, who you'll see Amber Mitchell and Cindy Israel out there, and our veterans team, Brandon Linker here, who are doing this all day, all night to make sure that we can do that outreach and we can hit these numbers. So this is where we've been, right? You'll see on the left our Facebook post with the mayor ballot from Akron. We spent the day in Akron with all our Ohio local preschool initiatives. You'll see another picture on the bottom that it looks like I may have flipped sideways with the CEO project and their provider brunch. At the 4C for Children Conference, we had a great time this weekend attending that. I am so confused about how all of my pictures got turned to the side. But there are some pictures of us at the entire Ohio contingent at the Groundwork Ohio event, which was not only Preschool Promise but our partners. Some of us at the NAACP Gala. And the top picture was an initiative that happened at Hamilton County Commission. And the commission president, Commissioner Reese, had a day of recognition for those that are fabulously surviving and fighting breast cancer. And we were so pleased to go and recognize Florence Woodruff, our Director of Community Engagement, as one of the survivors that were acknowledged on that day. So that's just kind of a snapshot of where we've been. We have the African American Chamber Gala coming up this Saturday. I told you all about our provider Thanksgiving. We have the 4C for Gala, for Children Gala in 2 weeks. So we'll keep you updated on those. We have lots of 4C tickets left and a few tickets left for Gala in the Grove, which will be November 22nd. So anytime you guys want to tap in, join us for the Gala, get your clothes together, let us know. It's always good for CPP to be a supportive partner, to show our support, and always say thanks for that advertising dollar, because that's what we get access to.
Sure, can you repeat the 4C, what day is that?
This Saturday, next Saturday, the 9th. The 9th. African American Chamber on the 2nd, 4C on the 9th, Gala in the Grove on the 22nd. And we will send them their board of managers update, so you have the dates and the details of each invitation. Yes, we have one ticket. I think a lot of people were encouraged because it was a Bridgerton theme. I think Bridgerton were all supposed to dress up.
Yeah, I got a whole lot.
But we're excited some of our providers who have African American Chamber memberships, who have really taken advantage of those webinars and their sessions to do anything from bookkeeping to promotions to how they network and build a business plan. So that's why we'll be present at that American Chamber, and to thank them for their support of the back to school jam every year. And that concludes my Assembly Director's report.
Alrighty, so next on the agenda, we have a Cincinnati Public School update from Ms. Vera. Where is she at?
And my throat's a little sore, so I'm gonna.
We'll
do
let
a
you
little
come on
closer.
up.
I'm gonna make everyone's throat a little sore. How about that?
Wait.
I'll be Berlin for a minute.
Yeah. Oh, good.
So updating you on a few things, our numbers as of today are still at 1,875, which is good. Thank you, Catherine. That works a lot better. I do want to be in agreement with Shara that systems are changing, and they're changing very fast and very quickly. You had mentioned children and youth will start with the licensure in January. Well, we have been the guinea pigs they have been with us aggressively, we'll say, meaning very fast, for the last couple of weeks. Out of 45, 46 sites, we are down to only having 15 left. They've been averaging 4 sites a day. And it is different. I think they're testing out some of the rules and looking at some of the rules to see what the final version will be before they get to the private providers. So we've been doing well. So everyone's licensed still, that's a good thing. So hard to come with. But it has been a challenge, and it has been a definite learning curve, having JFS and ODE merged together into children and youth. We've been very fortunate that my 2 managers and I have been able to have meetings with them so that, because most of our individuals are from the JFS side, for them to have a clear understanding of what occurs in a public school, and that we do have some other different policies, procedures for safety and for other reasons, that they may not follow that same policy or procedure in the private provider that might be smaller, because we have K6, K8, K12 buildings too. So that's been an experience. So we wish you well.
I'm ready.
I would say you buy lockbox now for Kleenex versus. So we've been working on that. Shara asked me to do an update as much as I could on the levy in phase 2. I hope that you all are tuning in for the board meetings. This is the school board meetings. But they are still in discussion on the levy, and they are still in discussion on the phase 2 recommendation that was made Saturday at the retreat, and then again last night. There will be opportunities for many family engagement and community engagement activities in November. We welcome everyone, look on the website or Facebook. If you have a voice or wish to voice, please participate in this with our superintendent.
Can you clarify what phase 2 means? What was phase 1? And how many phases are there?
As far as I know, I can clarify.
Yeah.
Okay. Phase 1 was what we completed as of August. That was the move of Spencer to Riverview, A6, to Mount Washington, thank you. That was phase 1. Okay. So phase 2 has now been posted, and the slideshow is on Cincinnati Public Schools board docs.
There's proposal.
It's a proposal.
Yeah, I think if people are interested in seeing the plan with all the recommendations, it is on the website.
Yes.
Ad hoc, it should be the ad hoc committee report, is that online?
No, it's online under Cincinnati Public Schools board docs.
Okay.
As of Saturday's retreat date and also last night's board meeting.
And it'll give you really a clear
It gives
picture
you
of the
diagrams.
and all the specific
So,
schools and all.
I will push it out to you all and send you the link to the board doc. I apologize, I'm real clear about those pages for Mr.
I got it, I got a copy today, so I guess.
If you send that to me, we'll send it out.
It's looking at going into some of the proposals are to go to east, central, west quarters, and some movement or so. But it's still in discussion, no decisions have been made.
And I apologize, Vera, because I thought we were talking about stages of the levy decision making, not overall policy.
I do know last night at the board meeting, they did discuss the different options for the levies, and that's also in Cincinnati Public Schools board docs, in the treasurer's report. So if you wish to go there and look at the different options and discussion, but that also is still in discussion mode.
And we will pull those data and push this out to you all.
And other than that, we just try to remove as many barriers as we possibly can and keep moving forward for our children. Thank you.
Any questions for Vera?
Vera, I have one, I guess, request. One of the things I would love to see is the same level or similar level of progress or performance or assessment that we see from the community provider side. I'm imagining that we have it on CPS side, but we'd love to see that.
We also have an agreement with Innovations, and they do our yearly report. And then we are now, TS Gold, we are doing this year across the board, all of our classroom and all of our students will be doing the TS Gold assessment and teaching strategies, because our main curriculum is teaching strategies for our core curriculum. That's not due until November 1st. And then they will also be doing the 15 progressions that are the early learning assessment. So I'm happy to share all that. I can send you all last year's report, the year before, because Innovations, we have a partnership. We went with the same so that we are able to share data with each other.
And just to remind everybody, all right, just to remind everybody that what Innovations presents related to the KRA are combined scores from CPS preschools and community preschools together.
Okay. I think it was a couple of years ago, we had an aha moment and said, well, let's use the same group. So then we're able to share data across the board. And they also are working with Community Action Agency, because we also have Head Start, and I believe you have some Head Start. So now the 3 in the city we're able to share.
I do support Chris's suggestion, and well, you actually offered it, some of the past reports, just so we can become more familiar and see trends.
Save them.
I may have, but I may consider what file is in
Once
or
a
what
CPS board
plans
member,
are.
always a CPS board member.
They're not in the garage in a box.
So what I'll ask Katie to do is to set up a subfolder on the board Google Drive that will have all CPS documents in there so that you can have those as well. So there'll be the things that Vera shares with me, but also the agendas that we may pull off with Word docs so that you have those readily available. Don't have to search.
I do know one thing that I did promise you all, and I don't have it by the actual schools, but I have it overall. We have been averaging 85 to 90% attendance daily or higher. So we are very proud of that fact.
Vera, I really, really am happy to see that you guys are using the teaching strategies, simply because it makes the transition so much easier for not only the children, but the parents and the teachers. So if everyone's using the same tool, then everyone understands the same language. So that's great.
And we're finding the teachers and the families really are enjoying, I love the reports. The reports are very colorful and easy to read.
Yes, looking at all the bands going across, is very influential to them, and it's very easy to read and interpret. So it's not any questions that they have to go like, what does this mean? Well, this, when he was at New Horizons, it said this, and now, so it's a lot less confusing.
Yes.
Yes.
great. And just one more thing, I am working with the district to look at our iReady, which is our monitoring tool. And I'm working with some teachers and some schools and principals to look at the iReady at K-1 to see exactly, especially in language and literacy and in mathematics, where we have some gaps or where we're not making a lot of gains. And then so we can scaffold it backwards. This week, looking at it, we definitely need to up our game in measurement, geometry. Our kids can identify the shapes, but then the 3D shapes and taking it to that next level, we're seeing that gap. So we are going, I'll be sharing with you all to share with your providers where we're seeing some gaps when the kids are getting into that school age.
And a different type of assessment, ASQ, is coming down. They're doing statewide, which is a screening, really, not really assessment that all parents are gonna have. It also gives you some different guidance of where your child is, what they need to do as a precursor to things. And so, yes, that's it. Yeah. You know, it's interesting that the new platform from the state has very much of it being parent-driven independently, rather than just those assessments being educator and provider-driven. So in a world of AI and technology, we don't think that's gonna work. We need some lessons we can learn from that.
Well, we went online and like you said, he's a professional ages and stages now. It is a tricky system that, providers are going to need, we needed help. Because the parents receive a QR code.
Right.
We can talk about it.
Sure, so, it can be set up, CAA is not doing this, but we did, to where we can, push out a QR code to the families. Because, again, I don't have laptops, and sending them a bit.ly or a URL, it's just not gonna work. So we developed QR codes, and they scan it, and then it directs them right to their building, they put in the child's birth date, information, then they can fill out the ASQ, which is the more academic side, and the ASQ SE, and the SE is social emotional. And then once they fill it out, it kind of sits in the cloud till an administrator matches the child to the classroom. And then the teacher will have access to all of that data coming from the family side.
But what we are starting to discover, and this is our first year doing this, so it's a learning curve. What we are starting to discover is our diagnostic teams that then review those screenings to see if there needs to be follow-up. They're able to access the data a lot faster instead of having to travel to classrooms, look at the hard copies, and read through the reports that way. So we see the benefits, we're not there yet, but we are learning.
One question, Glenn, on the ASQ, as the parents scan that QR code, do they really understand the questions that are being asked of them as to, or is it just, what do you see your child do in this situation?
So what we have, different levels, I'm sure. We don't just give them the QR code without context. There is an introductory letter that the QR code is attached to give them the basic understanding of what the purpose is here, the purpose of these screeners. So hopefully they're being thoughtful and not just trying to say, hey, my child's great at everything,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Because,
yes.
let's be honest, we're parents, and my child's perfect. But we're seeing, and again, this is just our first time through, but I think we're seeing really honest results for the most part coming in from the families, which is really heartening.
And that's what we need, to match those together so that we can get a clear picture, a true picture of the child and their abilities.
And we have family service assistants at all our sites that as we started this and rolled this out, they did a touch base with every family.
Good.
So if a family needed assistance, or if, say, a family is a non-English speaker, but yet was unable to actually read the document, we had services there to help those families that they could also complete it.
Okay,
So we had different touch points.
Are those in various languages?
You can get them in Spanish. We chose our three, Spanish, French, and Arabic.
Okay.
But you can get it in any language you want as long as you pay.
It's my understanding that DCY is taking on the role of doing that for the community provider setting and doing wide scale training for the provider and hub model with Southwest Ohio, Northwest Ohio, that like the services that a school district would be able to provide, they would provide those in the community provider network with a contracted pension arrangement as well.
We are still paying.
As the test pilot.
No, not as a test pilot.
Oh, just because.
Just because.
Well, I'll say this, the slides say that it should be at little to no cost, but that depends on what the state's budget is.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, next, we're the only observer today? So, I
Have a
don't know who's
great day,
taking,
everybody.
I don't know who's taking over Laura's job, but, I'll call for motion for adjournment. This is over. Secretary Carolyn, all in favor?
Aye.
The chair's back, and